In Australia, it doesn't snow very much. So to go see the snow, you have to go to one of a handful of mountains that snows in the peak of winter. And my buddy said, "Hey, are you interested in doing a ski trip?" And I said, "Why not?" So we loaded up in his Volvo and we drove the 10, 15 hours it was to get there, and we had an awesome time. It was up in Mount Hotham, and we decided to do a road trip on the way back. As we were chilling in our cabin, my buddy of mine, who's a Volvo nut, he says, "Hey, look at this Volvo S60R. This is pretty cheap." And I said, "Okay, that's very cool." I'll message the guy. So I messaged the guy on Marketplace, say like, "Hey, look, we're coming through from a ski trip from Mount Hotham to Adelaide. It's not on my way, but if the deal's right, I'll come through Melbourne." And sure enough, we negotiated and we came to somewhat of a decent price. We decided to do a detour, which is quite a few hours. So there was three of us in the car. We've headed down full of ski gear and stuff. We've come down into Melbourne and find this parking garage where it's, gathering lots of dust in the corner. And I'm like, this is quite a nice car. It's clean and stuff. Luckily for me, he thought that I was a resident of Victoria. And in Victoria, you need to pass roadworthy inspection to gain registration. Luckily for me, in Australia, it just requires a quick ID check, not an inspection. So I may have pretended to be from Victoria and said, "Hey, look, it's going to need this, this, and this to pass the roadworthy." And the price doesn't quite reflect that. And we were talking this anyway. I ended up buying that car for much, much under market value, as he thought I had to fix it up to its optimum condition to get a roadworthy certificate. So anyway, I ended up driving this car with no number plates all the way back to Adelaide. And as we were driving through Mount Gambier, we see a Astra convertible on the side of the road with the for sale sign on it, and we all drove past it, boom, boom, and then we're like, we got about 5 minutes past the car, and then my phone rings. He goes, "Hey, did you see that Astra on the side of the road?" And I said, "Yes." I'm like, "Are we turning around?" He said, "Yes." Sure enough, we spin around. We pull up at this random convertible Astra on the side of the road, and there's some low IQ individuals that were quite intoxicated out the front of their yard. And I said, "Hey, what's the deal with the car?" And they said, "Oh, I'm selling it for a buddy, blah, blah, blah. He's in prison or something like that." I'm like, "Okay, well, how much are you asking for it?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know, 5 grand or something like that." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a bit silly." So I'm saying, "Oh, you know what, I'll leave it." And he goes, "Oh, no, come on, no, maybe a bit cheaper, have a look at it." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." So anyway, he opens it up for me and he turns it on and it runs like crap. It's misfiring, it's sputtering and stuff like this. So I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this isn't worth anything near this." So I decided, you know what, I'll take it for a test drive. I'll see if I can get it moving. And sure enough, I jump in it with my buddy and we go down the road and it's driving absolutely horrendously. But it is actually quite a rare find. It was a turbo manual Bertone, which is a limited edition red interior manual turbo convertible, and most of them are automatic and the non-turbo just Astra engine, which is junk. So I'm like, "Well, this is kind of neat, maybe it's worth something, it's definitely interesting." But it was running like crap and I'm not too mechanically minded. I'm like, "I don't know how deep this runs." So anyway, pull over on the side of the road before we return and we're looking under the engine bay and I see some melted vacuum lines and I'm like, "Okay, let's have a look there." And all I've done essentially is pinch a vacuum line and it just started running quite well. And I'm thinking, let go of it, runs crap. And I grab it again and I muck around and I'm like, okay. So I did like a bit of a on the side of the road fix it and drove it a little bit before it. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually fine. Get back to the thing anyway. We're negotiating. And it started off as $5,000 and I ended up leaving with that car for $550. I tore that thing to shreds, absolutely everything that was wrong with it. So we left there. And I've now got two cars that I've purchased on the way home from a ski trip. Luckily, there was three of us to drive them home. We are now driving two cars without number plates across the country. It was a very interesting experience. We got the cars back home. I fixed both of them up for very cheap and managed to get a decent flip on both of them. And I decided to have plenty of fun in the convertible. It was the middle of summer. That was a great experience. The S60R was tuned. I had a few aftermarket bits. So that was very fast and very fun. And that then turned into an interesting sale in itself. But it goes to show that everyone is very negotiable when the time is right and you can pick a car to pieces and you walk away with a big smile on your face. Yeah, in Australia, It used to be a certain number of vehicles you're allowed to buy and sell before the authorities would say, hey, you're buying and selling many cars, you need to apply for a dealer's license. To which I got a few of those letters requesting I did so. And I got to the point where they suspended my activity, so I could not put more cars in or out of into my name. So I let that year lapse, and then they changed the law. It was a number. I think it was maybe 10 or 8 cars per year to be sold in and out of your name. But it was written as a number of 8 or something in that nature to beyond a reasonable amount. So now the process is looked at a case-to-case basis, which actually takes someone to go through the time to look at your history and stuff like that, which no one ever does. So luckily for me, I've managed to buy and sell pretty much as many vehicles as I want without repercussions and the stamp duty and this and that. That's one thing I think Americans definitely take for granted is the cost of registration. In South Australia, it costs, depending on how many cylinders your car is, anywhere between, say, $150 for 3 months, all the way up into about $300 for maybe a 10 or 12 cylinder car. So you're looking at about $1,000 to $1,500 a year just in registration alone. There's what we call stamp duty. So it's a percentage of anything over, I think, $2,500, which is insane. And if you purchase a new vehicle that's over $100,000, I think it is, it's subject to luxury car tax, which is 10%. So if you're buying a Ferrari or something for $790,000, you are looking to pay $79,000 in luxury car tax. And one thing that Americans definitely makes me chuckle is how much fines are over here. So if you're done speeding, it might be couple $100 maybe. In Australia, it is up there in the $400-500 range for a ticket and the points, and you're never getting it out of either. I know you like to plug ticket dismissers, but that is absolutely not the case in Australia. If you are to fight absolutely any expiation notice, you are then charged with a criminal charge. When you appear in front of a judge, if it's for littering, if it's going for 5 kilometers per hour over the speed limit, they will take away the expiation notice and reissue you a new criminal offense that if you lose in court, you might well be walking away with a criminal record for something as minor as 5 kilometers over the speed limit.
As dealership systems become more automated and more people sell their cars privately, it's harder and harder to find exactly the car that you're shopping for. But Auto Tempest is the most powerful way to shop for your next car because they compile the results from all the major listing sites into one place. Autotempest.com, all the cars, one search. They search nationally amongst all the major sites, but also allow you to search throughout the country at the same time for Facebook Marketplace results, Craigslist results, and things like that. So we love Auto Tempest because it's where I start most of my mornings, searching the deep dark corners of the internet to try to find my next bad automotive purchase. But you'll love them because it's the best way and the fastest way to find your next car. So check them out now at the link in the description below to find your next car on Auto Tempest.